Hello, hello. So it's Amy Castor, and I'm delighted to be here. We have an interesting story to talk about today, QUADRIGA CX, and I assume that a lot of you know things like what QUADRIGA is, or cold wallets, hot wallets. So the title of my talk is, How the Hell Did We Get Here? It's also the title of my timeline. So I was thinking about this story, and I thought, gosh, this is such a long, involved, complex story, and it really goes way back, but where do we enter it, right? Where do we begin? So I thought, well, let's start the story. How about December 8th, 2018? A healthy 30-year-old man lands in Jaipur, India. You know who this is, don't you? He's there for a honeymoon, a lavish honeymoon. He and his wife, they just got married not too long ago before this, and they're staying in quite a nice hotel. It's about $1,000 USD a night, and they reserved 4 nights there. So they land in Jaipur on December 8th, and soon after they land, this man, this 30-year-old man, he gets a bellyache because he's got Crohn's disease. He checks into the hospital, and he's okay into the next day. He's not feeling too well, and he ends up dying the next day. And I won't go into too many details because we don't have a lot of time. But he dies the next day due to complications of Crohn's disease. He has cardiac arrest. He goes into cardiac arrest 3 times. The 3rd time, they can't revive him. So he dies December 9th, 2018. What's interesting about this man is he is the only person in the whole world holding the keys to $180 million in crypto, Canadian dollars. Who is this person? You've probably already guessed. It's Gerald Cotten. He's the founder and CEO of QUADRIGA CX. Who's his wife? Jennifer Robertson. That's her current name. So what is QUADRIGA? And you know already. It is the biggest cryptocurrency exchange in Canada. It's also one of the oldest exchanges. It was founded in December 2013. So Bitcoin was really kind of getting going around that time. The exchange goes belly up in January 2019. At the time it goes belly up, it owes $250 million. Well, it was holding $250 million according to court documents, and that included $70 million in cash, $180 million in crypto, and there are approximately 115,000 affected users. What does belly up mean? I looked that up because I thought that was kind of interesting. It means belly up. It means, you're dead. So if a company goes belly up, that's the end. What happened? That's the big question everybody's asking, right? And we'll talk a little bit about that right now. So just a quick timeline. I'll step you through it, and some of you may be already really be familiar with this. But the dates are interesting when you put together the whole story. So June or October, not really sure, because there's some conflicting stories. June or October last year, Gerald Cotten marries Jennifer Robertson. Soon after he gets married, he writes up a very detailed will, November 27th, 2018. In the will, he leaves her everything. A $500,000 yacht, a $500,000 Cessna airplane, about $7.5 million worth of property, and that's houses and other properties, real estate. And he also leaves her a lot of QUADRIGA shares in the company. So he is in fact the largest shareholder, and if he were to die, she would become largest shareholder December 9th. And this is just shortly after the will is written. Gerald Cotten dies. Now nobody knows he's dead. Except for a few people close to him, or close to Jennifer, and Jennifer, who now is a director of the company, who takes over after Cotten. she doesn't tell anybody that he's dead until January 14th, when there's sort of a notice that appears on the website. The platform operates until January 26th, when it's then paused. And this is like a long time after the CEO of the company has died. It's not what you would expect. It's kind of a big deal when the CEO of a company passes away. It's kind of like important information. January 31st, the company files for creditor protection in Canada. So what do we know? Like, I've talked to other reporters and a few people working on documentaries, and they always ask me this question. And somebody else emailed me this question as I was sitting out there. Do you think Gerald Cotton died? You know, or did it, you know, or some people say, was he poisoned? Da, 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 da. What? I don't know. How would I know that? What we do know is that India is a good place to fake a death. I mean, you could fake your death there. And we do know that the exchange was in trouble before it went belly up, right? India is a good place to fake a death. Well, there is an industry for fake death certificates, so for insurance scams or whatever. And this is an article from November 2011, but now everything's online, so here's something that was recent about fake death certificates, right? So now I said QUADRIGA was in trouble, so let's take a step back, and I'll take you through that. December 2013, QUADRIGA launches. What is the biggest challenge that a crypto exchange has in Canada? Well, banking. It's very hard to get banking. Here's Gerald Cotton on Decentral Talk Live. And this is what he was saying on this video online. And he's talking about how difficult it was to get banking. The only way you could actually buy Bitcoin was you'd have to send a wire over to Japan. That was, you know, Mt. Gox. We know that was a big exchange in Tokyo at the time that also went bust in February 2014. But he says you couldn't hook up your bank account anywhere. It was just such a challenge, right? So how do you solve that problem? Having a good business partner helps. Meet QUADRIGA co-founder Michael Patron. This is his skill set. He's been working with centralized digital currencies since the early 2000s. And he knows a little bit about finding workarounds to banking systems. Who is Michael Patron? Who is Michael Patron? Well, he kind of looks like this man. I think they look alike. Who is this other person? This was an article in the Globe and Mail recently, and he looks a lot like Omar Danani. I can never say this name. Danani. Omar Danani. Who's Omar Danani? Oh, he's a convicted felon. Omar Danani was, let's see, we go back to 2004. He was a moderator for, not Shadowfax, that's an error, it's Shadow Crew, an online bazaar for stolen cards and IDs. Basically, you could go onto that website and buy stolen credit card numbers, stolen IDs, whatever. And he was a moderator on the forum, and also he offered some of the people on the forum a valuable service, which was basically electronic money laundering with eGold, which was a centralized cryptocurrency. He'd also worked with Liberty Reserve, which is another centralized digital currency. So he went to jail for that. 18 months he served in jail, and he got out in 2007. The U.S. said, you know, we don't want you in this country anymore, and they sent him back to Canada. So he got interested in Bitcoin. Remember, eGold was shut down. Liberty Reserve was shut down in 2013 because it was money laundering and that sort of thing. So he gets interested in Bitcoin in mid-2013. Bitcoin is a little bit different as far as digital currencies go because it's decentralized. It's not that easy to shut down. So how does QUADRIGA solve the banking problem? Well, a couple ideas. One is it uses a patchwork of third-party payment processors, and this is how that works. You wire some money to one of these third-party payment processors like BillerFi, and your account on QUADRIGA is credited with QUAD-bucks, which is another digital currency. So QUADRIGA doesn't have any banking. They're not actually holding your money. It's another company, a third-party payment processor that's holding your money, right? If you want to, so you can use QUAD-bucks to buy Bitcoin, whatever, on the exchange, right? Now, if you want to get your fiat back, you just send a request to QUADRIGA. They forward that request to the third-party payment processor, and actually, QUADRIGA will even do a free withdrawal. You can withdraw your fiat for free. You just have to wait 2 weeks, sometimes longer, but you'll get the money. Don't worry. There's some other ideas for getting around the banking system that they had. Bitcoin ATM machines. That was something that came up in January 2014. They also, around May 2014, came up with a plan to accept gold from their customers, because we can hold your gold. We'll get in trouble if we hold fiat because we're not a bank, but gold is okay. So you can send us your gold bullion, and we'll keep it safe. Don't worry. And you can withdraw gold bullion too, right? And then around April 2015, there was sort of like this renewed plan for the Bitcoin ATM machines where you can deposit cash directly, even get cash withdrawals. And here was another interesting thing with QUADRIGA is they actually had this service where you could do cash pickups and deliveries, right? You could actually have a box of cash delivered to your door. That's pretty cool, huh? You don't need a bank for that, do you? Yeah, here it is, cash delivery. And that was, it looks like May 28th, 2018. That was kind of new. So what were the early signs of trouble? Well, and then we can get people to give us money, and we'll get some backing and stuff like that. Well, that never worked. That kind of led to some problems. But anyhow, that's a story for another day. In February 2016, all the directors of the company kind of stepped down or disappeared. The company never went public. And from about early 2016 onward, Cotton is on his own, we think, for all we know, but So what does that mean? That means he's like operating this entire exchange from his laptop from wherever he happens to be. QUADRIGA's got no official place of business, and we know that all the platform data is backed up and it's stored on the cloud in AWS. Now, this is something that I really want to emphasize. There's no checks and balances in this company, right? There's no third-party audits, and there's no books, unless you count that as a book. Those aren't really books either. Those are just bank drafts sitting on the stove. So here's some more signs of trouble. June 2017, due to a software glitch, QUADRIGA loses about $19 million. Whoops. August 2017, people start reporting issues with getting cash out of the exchange. It's taking a little bit longer than we thought. Actually, it's not really showing up. September 2017, there's some more problems with one of the third-party payment processors, a processor called WB21. Have you heard about them? Anybody heard about them? You know WB21? Nobody? Okay. So they're holding they're currently holding, according to Gort documents, about 12 million CAD. I get confused going back and forth between CAD and USD, but about 12 million CAD, 9 million USD of QUADRIGA money that they have, that they're not giving up. They have a reputation for kind of taking people's money and not giving it back. So they're not really processing the money. So December 2017, something else happens. 2017, there was this, spectacular run-up in the price of Bitcoin. It hits a peak right about mid-December, 20,000 USD, 27,000 CAD, right? And then it starts going downhill. But so during this time, right, people are sending money to the exchange because everybody wants to invest in Bitcoin, so they can get rich like their friends. Maybe they've seen other people get wealthy, so they want to buy Bitcoin too. And some people are cashing out, right? So there's a lot of money that's going through this one particular payment processor. So banks don't like that because banks don't really want to have anything to do with anything that looks like money laundering, right? They have a real aversion to that. So CIBC saw this money going back and forth. They weren't sure who it belonged to. So they froze that money, right? That problem gets worse because eventually in December they unfree the money, but then the third-party payment processor can't get any other banks to take the checks. April 2015, we know this later, that there's several Bitcoin cold wallets that are all empty, but that really wasn't a sign of trouble at the time. Mid-2018, there's customers are beginning to report more delays in fiat. Late 2018, now people are having trouble getting their crypto out of the exchange, that shouldn't be happening because it should go directly from the exchange to the customer, right? There's no processor there. So that's kind of a little bit disconcerting. December 9th, Cotton dies. So you can kind of see he died at a really interesting time. So what now? So I think I've got a little more time so I can talk slower. QUADRIGA applied for creditor protection on February 5th. They got a 30-day stay. It's called a Companies Creditor Arrangement Act, CCAA in Canada. The court-appointed monitor is Ernst & Young, and a monitor is essentially an independent third party, and they're going through all the books. I can only imagine the conversations they're kind of having amongst each other. So there's a lot of lawyers now. There's a lot of people looking at what happened at QUADRIGA and trying to put together the pieces, trying to find out what funds are left or recoverable, right? I mean, I was in Halifax recently, and I was at the hearing on March 5th, and I was really struck by how many professionals were in that courtroom. I mean, the judge, and there was just 3 rows of lawyers and accountants, right? So maybe 8, 9 people in the room, other people in the back room. How much money do lawyers make an hour, right? And the last monitor report, the third monitor report, they'd already gone through $410,000, right, since this started. That's a lot of money. So now the courts have approved the appointment of yet another person, a chief restructuring officer. It's called a CRO. His name is Peter Wedlake. He's with Grant Thornton. And a chief restructuring officer is kind of like that interim CO that comes in and takes over the company and fixes it up. But, I mean, there's only 2 directors left at the company. It's like Jennifer Robertson and her stepfather, Tom Beasley, and a third director. He's stepped down. So it's them. And I think I read somewhere there were 7 contractors at QUADRIGA. Maybe they've let go of most of them. So there's like not even that many people at the company. Now they have a chief restructuring officer. A little bit of money has been recovered. If you think that there was $250 million that the exchange was holding at that time, so what have they found so far? Well, there's a little bit of money in the hot wallets, just a little bit. And about half of that has already been lost because on February 6th, one day after the company applied for creditor protection, there was sort of this inadvertent occurrence where about $500,000 CAD dollars worth of crypto was inadvertently sent to the cold wallets, which means that you'll never access or see that money again. So it was kind of weird. So there's about 400,000 CAD worth of crypto left in the hot wallets, maybe 430,000, and the Ernst & Young has been able to get about 30 million Canadian dollars from 2 payment processors, and it's worked out a deal with the one of the banks to take those checks. So that's not a lot. I mean, if there's over 100,000 users, and you were only able to find maybe 1/10 of the money that was on the exchange at the time, it's like a major loss. Hopes for finding more money? I don't know. So why should you care about any of this? Why should anybody care about QUADRIGA? Because a lot of people got hurt, and I think that's one thing that's missed in a lot of conversations. There were people who lost money; they got hurt, and there's kind of this thing in crypto. Well, not your keys, not your Bitcoin. Well, I mean, if somebody loses money in a bad investment, does that make them a fool? Is it their fault? I mean, so also the story is getting international attention. I've gotten, since I wrote my timeline, I've gotten calls from the BBC, the other reporters, several people working on documentaries, and one person's working on a screenplay. So this is like Quadriga, so like Mount Quadriga. It's like Canada's Mount Gox, right? And Mount Gox was the big exchange in Canada that was handling 70% of all Bitcoin transactions in 2014. That went bust, and still in bankruptcy today. People still haven't gotten their money back. But after Mount Gox, Japan really changed its approach to how it handles cryptocurrency exchanges. And now they are subject, if you're a crypto exchange in Japan, you're subject to the same oversight as if you were a financial institution. You've got to have audits. You have to be accountable to your customers. If you hacked, you have to pay them back. So really, this Quadriga is something that impacts the whole space, right? Bitcoin wouldn't be valued at what it is now if it weren't for cryptocurrency exchanges, because exchanges are what brings liquidity to all these coins. And the other question that comes up is a lot of people wondering, well, if this happened to Quadriga, what about the other exchanges out there? What about Bitfinex? What about all these other big ones or ones that they don't have a lot of regulation? Are they also in trouble and we don't know about it? So anyhow, that's why you should care. Questions? Yes?
When this went down, I took a look at some of the hot wallets, and I noticed that they were paying people out Bitcoin withdrawals from what looked like minor deposits. This was after
Yeah.
it died, but before it became public. Has that been noted anywhere? And also I wanted to ask, is there a complete list of all the cold wallet, like
Yeah. So you're asking that you saw somewhere that there was some other research about hot wallets and where the money was going. Oh, you did it. Okay. So there's a lot of speculation about where money in the hot wallets went and everything like that. Ernst & Young is conducting its own investigation. I think a lot of that information will come out over time. And we're learning every time they release a report. What was the other question? Do we have a full list of the cold wallets? No. Ernst & Young identified 6 cold wallets that held Bitcoin at one point in the past. Now all of them except the one that contains the inadvertent 104 Bitcoin that landed. They're all empty. And there were 3 other crypto cold wallets, but they didn't say much about that. So that's kind of all we know right now. And then there's other speculation on the internet or people doing their own research, but it's not official.
You didn't mention anything about common storing coins on other exchanges, and there seems to be some weird connection with Kraken and Jesse over there.
Yeah, so Jesse Powell's the CEO and founder of Kraken, which is a U.S.-based exchange, and he's really interested in doing his own research, and he had 2 podcasts, and he's offering a $100,000 reward. Jesse, I missed that. That's interesting. So yeah, I don't know why. There's been speculation that maybe he's interested in buying the user base for Quadriga. He says, I shared a few emails with him. He just says that he's just interested in helping people retrieve their funds. So, yeah. Is there any other questions, or has to be? Right. Go ahead. What? Yes, I'm pointing at you. Thank you. Right. 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 So he says So his question is, what are we missing here? that he's hearing people say this should never have happened. Well, it happened. What are we missing here is that Bitcoin is a payment system. It's secure as long as everything is on the blockchain, but once you put everything into a cryptocurrency exchange, you're trusting them with your private keys, right? And the reason people put things leave their money on an exchange is because it's hard to track by yourself, and also because they're trading the funds, right? They're buying Bitcoin or Bitcoin or other crypto because they want to trade it. That's the big appeal, right? And many of the exchanges don't have much oversight. I mean, obviously QUADRIGA had like almost zero oversight, and so I think it kind of raises a few eyebrows. How the hell did this happen? And that's why, is because there was no oversight. Does that answer your question? And does anybody else have? Yes.
So in some other missing crypto cases, people have been able to look at the blockchain and like they can see the wallet and be like, there's all the crypto.
Right. So yeah.
So in this case, it just gone.
Well, so that works if you can see the addresses, and that's what he was asking. Do we know where the cold wallets are? Do we know where the Bitcoin addresses is? And we don't. We don't know where they all are, and that's a problem because if we don't know where they are, then we can't track where the money went. And that's big question that's coming up is supposedly $180 million was locked in the cold wallets when he died and had the keys, but we don't even know if that money actually existed. So, and I don't know if I made that point clear. We don't know if the money actually existed. So I'll go until somebody tells me to stop. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
It's all one hop away, so you can tell it's a customer deposit address. So one of the big factors is like all the money when QUADRIGA getting deposited those exchanges. None of those three have responded with like, oh, this is a customer.
Well, I don't think we know exactly who's responded, who hasn't. I mean, in Ernst & Young's report, there was money that was being taken to other exchanges. They wrote to 14 exchanges, maybe 3 wrote back, and they got a little bit of money from one. So we just don't know a lot of details about. And then Brian Armstrong, I mean, if you saw he was speculating that, maybe they were operating a fractional reserve for a while. I mean, the thing is that QUADRIGA could have done anything they wanted. Anything could have happened, right? They could have been spending customers' money, and they were operating a fractional reserve. I mean, it was like maybe they got in trouble, and there was nothing there to stop them. I mean, the problem just kept getting bigger and bigger and more out of control. Any other questions? Over here again? Sorry. You asked a question already, right? But go ahead. Yes. And then I'll get to you. Yeah, so they just don't know. Nobody knows where all the cold wall addresses are. Well, Gerald Cotton is dead, right? So Jennifer Robertson didn't supposedly have much involvement with the business. All the exchange data is tied up on the cloud, so we don't have access to nobody has access to the. Yeah, so they're still doing the investigation, so there'll be more coming out, I would imagine. Yes.
Do you think there's a possibility that he stored some of his cryptocurrency on an Android smartphone, and hence the private keys were stolen by hackers?
Well, there's maybe he was poisoned, maybe he faked his death. I mean, maybe Patron flew to India and poisoned him, or there was a little bit of there was some crypto that was recovered from the phone. That doesn't sound like that plausible to me, but
AT&T and T-Mobile have had
yeah.
cryptocurrency hacked in the United States, so actually it seems to me more plausible.
Well, I don't know about that, but it's an interesting thought. So I think we're almost out of time, but I can't see in the back. Oh, wrap it up. Should I have time for one more question, or I'm wrapping up? Wrap it up means stop. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, so much. What? Thank you. That was fun.